June 1991.
Penny Bell, a successful businesswoman, is found brutally stabbed over 50 times, slumped behind the wheel of her Jaguar in a busy leisure centre car park. No robbery, no sexual assault, just a savage personal attack that shook London to its core. The killer vanished without a trace, leaving behind only blood, unanswered questions, and a trail of frustration that still haunts investigators over 30 years later. Who wanted Penny dead, and why? Tonight, we dive deep into one of the capital's most chilling unsolved murders. This is the story of Penny Bell. Welcome to Crimes That Haunt Us. We release a new case every Sunday at 6 p.m, so hit subscribe and don't miss the next one. And let me know your thoughts on this case in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. In the affluent enclave of Baker's Wood, Denham, Buckinghamshire, where celebrities like Paul Daniels and Cilla Black mingled among sprawling estates, Ruth Penelope Penny Bell lived a life that seemed charmed. Born on the 28th of February 1948, Penny was a 43-year-old businesswoman, a former Samaritan, and a devoted mother of two, Matthew and Lauren. She resided with her husband, Alistair Bell, an estate agent, in a £500,000 home they had occupied since October 1987. As a partner in Coverstaff Limited, a thriving catering employment agency in Kilburn, North London, Penny was known for her meticulous financial records and vibrant personality. Yet beneath the polished exterior of her idyllic life, hidden secrets simmered, secrets that would culminate in one of Britain's most perplexing unsolved murders. The Bell family home was undergoing a £100,000 renovation starting in November 1990, with upgrades to the kitchen and bedrooms transforming their space. Amid this chaos, a seemingly mundane detail emerged on the 24th of April 1991. A Laura Ashley wallpaper sample mailed to their residence for the bedroom redecoration. Penny, usually transparent, kept this sample private, not showing it to Alistair or the builders, an unusual choice for someone so open. On the day of her death, this sample was found spread out on the center console of her powder blue Jaguar XJS, as if deliberately unfolded. Was it a clue to a meeting tied to this innocuous item that turned deadly, or a killer's attempt to stage the scene, cloaking Penny's final intentions in mystery? On June 3, 1991, at approximately 2:30 p.m, Penny visited her bank on Kilburn High Road and made an unprecedented move. She withdrew £8,500 in used £50 notes from her joint account with Alistair, a sum equivalent to roughly £20,000 today. Handed to her in a brown manila envelope, this was the largest cash withdrawal she had ever made, and she neither discussed it with Alistair nor recorded it in her meticulous financial notes. The money would soon vanish, its purpose unknown. Was it intended for the renovations, a secret transaction, or a response to blackmail? This out-of-character act remains a haunting puzzle, suggesting a hidden motive that may have led to her death. The evening of June 5, 1991, cast an ominous veil. Alistair noticed Penny seemed distracted, falling asleep during the 9 o'clock news, a stark departure from her lively demeanour. This subtle shift hinted at an unspoken worry, perhaps tied to the £8,500 withdrawal or an unrecorded appointment looming the next day. Her unease, though understated, cloaked her final night in foreboding. On June 6, 1991, at 8:30 a.m, Alistair left for work with Matthew, following their usual routine of waving goodbye to Penny as she stood in the driveway. That morning, described as bright and chirpy despite the chaos of builders working on the £100,000 renovation, Penny uncharacteristically did not wait to wave them off. This small deviation, unnoticed by Alistair at the time, feels chilling in hindsight, as if she sensed the danger awaiting her. By 9:30 a.m., Penny was rushing, making coffee for the builders and mentioning a 9:50 appointment she couldn't miss. This appointment, starkly absent from her diary and unshared with Alistair, contrasted with her meticulous nature. An electrician, the last person to speak with her, described her as normal and casual, yet her hurry suggested she masked underlying anxiety. Was this a spontaneous errand, as Alistair would later suggest, or a clandestine rendezvous, perhaps linked to her past as a Samaritan? Could her unrecorded appointment have been with someone from this shadowy chapter of her life? A caller who grew too attached, or whose desperation turned to rage? Perhaps John Richmond, a builder and former neighbour from Harrow, known to Penny before their move to Denham. At 9:40, she leaves the house, driving toward an unknown destination, the last confirmed sighting by someone who knew her. At 9:50 a.m., a female dog walker on the Fulmer Common Road, opposite the Bridgetine Convent near Black Park, saw a man, white, approximately 5'10" and around 48 years old. He entered a blue Jaguar believed to be Penny's after possibly exiting a brown or bronze parked car. His casual entry suggested familiarity, raising questions about their relationship. Was he the person she intended to meet? At 10:20 a.m., the scene turned sinister. Witnesses on the Greenford Road saw Penny's Jaguar travelling at approximately 10 miles per hour, its hazard lights flashing, an unusual signal for a luxury car in broad daylight. Penny was struggling with a male passenger, described as around 40, with dark, cropped, swept-back hair, possibly bearded, wearing a dark blazer and a bracelet on his right wrist. She appeared to be trying to pull the car off the road, but the man kept her on course, a tense struggle unfolding in plain sight. At 10:20 a.m., a witness, reporting 6 months later in December 1991, said he saw Penny driving into the Gurnall Leisure Centre car park, still wrestling with the same man, mouthing, "Help me," to him. The delay in this report, born of fear or indifference, deepened the tragedy of her unanswered cry. By 10:30 a.m., Penny was murdered inside her parked Jaguar in the Gurnall Leisure Centre car park. The car, positioned facing a high hedge that severely limited visibility with its soundproof cabin likely muffling shouts, allowed the killer to act unseen in a crowded public space. At 10:35, a woman pushing a pram noticed the Jaguar with its window wipers on and hazard lights flashing. Odd for sunny weather, but she walked on. At 10:45 a.m., an auxiliary nurse turning into Ruislip Road East pulled out in front of a dark car driven erratically from the direction of the leisure centre. The driver, behaving aggressively, flashed their lights and honked, forcing the nurse to pull over eventually on Cuckoo Avenue. This incident raises questions about a possible escape vehicle, though only 2 vehicles remained untraced weeks later. Meanwhile, another woman observed a smartly dressed man, one side of his face appearing disfigured, possibly by a mole, birthmark or smudge, walking near the leisure centre, presumed to be heading toward the pool. Carrying no bags and showing no visible blood, his polished appearance stood out, raising questions about his role as a witness or suspect. Between 10:50 and 10:55 a.m., a witness, reporting in 2019, saw a man crossing a footbridge over the A40 Western Avenue near the crime scene. This man was described as tall, tanned, in his early 30s with short brown hair, lighter on top, He wore blue and striped boxer shorts, a white t-shirt and a chunky chain link bracelet, carrying a rucksack. His wet appearance, as if he had just washed, suggested he cleaned off blood, possibly in a nearby restroom or water source. This elusive figure, slipping away in broad daylight, contrasts with the smartly dressed, disfigured man seen minutes earlier, hinting at multiple suspicious figures or mistaken identities. By 11 a.m., two women parking next to Penny's Jaguar noticed her slumped upright in the driver's seat, hazard lights on and wipers scraping a dry windshield, an eerie mechanical rhythm. Mistaking her for asleep, they went to go swimming. Between 12 and 12:15 p.m., they returned, this time noticing blood spatter, and they alerted the police. 12:15 p.m., officers arrived at the scene. The Jaguar was locked. Through the glass, they could see a woman slumped forward in the driver's seat. At first glance, she might have been sleeping or unwell, but as they peered closer, it became chillingly clear. This was no medical emergency. This was a murder. The woman, Penny Bell, was upright in her seat, slumped over the steering wheel. Her body bore the unmistakable savagery of a frenzied knife attack. Over 50 stab wounds riddled her chest and arms. The sheer violence suggested a deeply personal rage. Many wounds were defensive. Penny had fought back. There was no evidence of sexual assault and no signs of robbery. Her handbag and purse were untouched behind the passenger seat, money still inside. But the £8,500 in a brown envelope she had withdrawn days earlier remained unaccounted for. The driver's side window was partially open, hinting that the killer may have attacked from outside, but forensic analysis painted a darker truth. The stabbing began inside the car, from the front passenger seat. Penny's killer had been sat right beside her. The onslaught continued even after they exited the car, reaching back through the open window to finish the job. On the center console, a single Laura Ashley wallpaper sample lay open, an innocuous clue, but one tied to the renovations Penny had been planning in her home. Possibly connected to the person she was meeting that day, or the person who killed her. Despite a car park brimming with over 60 vehicles, no one saw or heard the attack. No cries, no struggle, no escape. It all played out in near silence, and although the killer would have been soaked in blood, not one witness reported seeing a person in such a state. The ferocity of the attack, over 50 stab wounds, would have left the killer drenched in Penny's blood, their clothes and hands likely stained crimson. Yet, in a car park teeming with activity, not a single witness reported seeing anyone fleeing in such a state. Did the killer bring a change of clothes, meticulously planning their escape? Was there a nearby water source, like the one hinted at by the wet man on the A40 footbridge, where they washed away evidence? Or did an accomplice aid their swift disappearance, spiriting them away in the erratic dark car seen speeding from the scene? The bloodless vanishing act suggests a chilling level of calculation, deepening the enigma of how the killer evaded notice in plain sight. A methodical cleanup, a planned disguise, or a killer who vanished before anyone knew a crime had even occurred. The Jaguar had been parked next to a high hedge, offering seclusion in an otherwise public space, perhaps chosen deliberately. Inside the car, fingerprints were lifted and later matched to John Richmond, a former neighbor and friend of Penny's. But the most damning evidence, it was Penny's fingernail clippings, potentially holding the attacker's DNA, but they were lost or misplaced. A catastrophic forensics failure. The crime scene was sealed off, but not preserved properly over time. Contamination became a looming concern. On June 14, 1991, a somber funeral service was held for Ruth Penelope Penny Bell at a local church in Buckinghamshire, attended by grieving family, friends, and members of the community, all gathered to mourn the vibrant 43-year-old mother and businesswoman brutally taken just 8 days earlier. The ceremony, steeped in sorrow, marked a moment of collective loss for Penny's husband, Alistair, their children, Matthew and Lauren, and those who knew her through her work at Coverstaff Limited or her past as a Samaritan. The church was filled with tributes to her lively spirit, yet an undercurrent of unease pervaded as her killer remained at large. Unbeknownst to the mourners, the Metropolitan Police, led by Detective Superintendent Brian Edwards, had discreetly positioned plainclothes officers at a distance, equipped with cameras to surveil the event. Investigators operated on a common theory in murder cases, that the perpetrator might attend the funeral, whether out of guilt, curiosity, or a desire to maintain a facade of innocence. Despite their efforts, no suspicious individuals were identified in the images, and the killer, if present, slipped through the lens unnoticed, adding another layer of frustration to the investigation's early days. On the 12th of September 1991, Penny Bell's case was featured on the BBC's flagship programme Crimewatch. With the investigation stalling and public interest mounting, detectives took to the airwaves in a desperate bid for answers. Viewers across the country were shown a reconstruction of Penny's final hours, while investigators issued a direct appeal for anyone who might have seen her powder blue Jaguar on the morning of the murder. Led by Detective Superintendent Brian Edwards, the Metropolitan Police launched a major investigation using the Holmes database. By May 1992, over 4,000 people were interviewed and 2,500 statements collected, yet no corroborated witnesses of the attack or escape emerged. Of approximately 300 people at the leisure centre or car park between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., 250 were interviewed and eliminated, leaving about 50 untraced. Police released e-fits based on witness descriptions of 2 men. The passenger in Penny Bell's Jaguar, about 40, with dark cropped hair, possibly bearded, wearing a dark blazer and a bracelet, and a smartly dressed man near the leisure centre with a disfigured face marked by a mole or birthmark. Crafted from hazy recollections using 1991's limited photo fit technology, these grainy images were shared via newspapers and TV appeals after June 6, urging public tips. Alistair Bell became a person of interest early in the investigation, within days of Penny's murder on June 6, as is standard for spouses in such cases. The Metropolitan Police scrutinised him due to several factors. A £200,000 life insurance policy payout linked to Penny's death, which raised questions about financial motive, and his prior 11-year relationship with a man, openly acknowledged as his former partner attended their 1981 wedding and remained on amicable terms with the couple after their decade-long marriage. This personal history, unconventional for the time, drew media attention and fueled speculation, particularly when public tips dwindled as a result. Alistair was questioned multiple times in the weeks following the murder, with detectives probing his whereabouts, their marriage, and any potential involvement in Penny's death. He cooperated fully, providing detailed statements about his movements on June 6, including his departure with Matthew at 8:30 a.m. and his workday in Harrow. His alibi was rigorously investigated and corroborated by multiple witnesses at his workplace who confirmed his presence throughout the morning, making it impossible for him to have been at the Gurnall Leisure Centre during the time of her murder. And by late June 1991, police cleared Alistair as a suspect, satisfied that his alibi was airtight and no forensic evidence linked him to the crime scene. Despite this, media speculation about his past relationship persisted, casting a shadow over the investigation and complicating public cooperation. Alistair, alongside Penny's business partner, offered a £20,000 reward for information leading to a conviction, a move that yielded no breakthroughs. The critical loss of Penny's fingernail clippings, which might have contained the attacker's DNA, and the absence of the murder weapon further hindered investigative progress, leaving detectives grasping at shadows. In April 1992, John Richmond, a builder and former Harrow neighbour, was arrested after his fingerprints were found in Penny's Jaguar. Claiming he was with Penny that morning, his vague, uncorroborated story, revealed only after forensic evidence surfaced, raised suspicions. Interviewed multiple times, he provided no plausible explanation for his year-long silence. But with insufficient evidence to charge him, he was released. In 1994, Richmond approached The Sun, seeking £80,000 for a story claiming an affair with Penny and a meeting on June 6th. Police reinvestigated but found no evidence, concluding he sought financial gain, his tale adding deception to the case. By 2001, the emotional toll on the Bells family was evident. Lauren, then 19, was asked to leave the family home by Alistair, who said he couldn't do love anymore. Her brother Matthew had already left years earlier to attend boarding school, quietly distancing himself from the turmoil that lingered in the aftermath of their mother's murder. The once tight-knit family fractured under grief, with Alistair becoming reclusive, the Denham home falling into disrepair. 2003, more than a decade after the brutal daylight murder of Penny Bell, hope resurfaced. The Metropolitan Police launched a full-scale forensic review of the case, determined that advancements in DNA technology might succeed where early 1990s forensics had failed. Techniques like short tandem repeat or low copy number, or LCN, DNA profiling, able to extract full profiles from the tiniest fragments of biological material, were now on the table. The review targeted the bloodstains inside Penny's Jaguar XJS, the clothing she wore, her personal items, and above all, the fingernail clippings taken after her savage killing. Those clippings were critical, but the forensics reviews soon turned into a devastating blow. The fingernail clippings, perhaps the single most important evidence in the entire case, were missing. Somewhere between collection in 1991 and the 2003 review, they had been lost, mishandled, or misfiled. No one could say where or how. Official records were vague. Some suggested they had been stored improperly, while others hinted they were never catalogued correctly at all. But either way, they were gone. Other biological samples didn't fare much better. Blood droplets from the car's upholstery and the ground were too far degraded. In the years following the murder, the Jaguar had not been preserved under proper forensics protocols. After the initial sealing, the vehicle had been left exposed. Contaminants seeped in, chain of custody records were incomplete. The results? Nearly every sample had been compromised. December 2008. With the conviction of Robert Napper for the 1992 murder of Rachel Nicholl sent shockwaves through the UK. After years of missteps and a wrongful suspect, DNA had finally confirmed what some investigators had long feared. A calculating, sadistic killer had slipped through the cracks. In the wake of Napper's conviction, detectives began to re-examine other unsolved London murders, particularly those with similar hallmarks: frenzied knife attacks, no signs of sexual assault, and handbags left untouched. Among them, Penny Bell, murdered in 1991, Jean Bradley, 1993, and Claire Tiltman, 1993. Each case bore disturbing similarities. In all three, the victims had been attacked with shocking violence, stabbed dozens of times. Each was alone, either in or near a vehicle or a public setting like a leisure centre car park or footpath. And in every case, robbery appeared not to be the motive. The victim's personal belongings were left untouched. Robert Napper was a known predator. Between 1989 and 1994, he committed over 100 sexual assaults along southeast London's green chain footpaths. In 1993, he murdered Samantha Bissett and her 4-year-old daughter Jasmine in their Plumstead home, a crime scene drenched in violence. The Bissett case, like Penny Bell's, had all the hallmarks of explosive rage and methodical cruelty. Detectives scrutinized the pattern: multiple stab wounds, no sexual motive, isolated victims, and a calculated ability to strike without being seen. But in the end, Napper was ruled out, both for Penny Bell's murder and that of Jean Bradley. In Jean Bradley's case, witness descriptions didn't align. Napper, though over 6 feet tall, often stooped to appear shorter, but even that detail didn't match with the accounts provided. More importantly, no forensic link ever emerged, and in Penny Bell's case, there was simply nothing to connect him. No DNA, no fingerprints, no credible sightings. His known movements and geographic patterns didn't match the timeline, and after a thorough analysis, they found no evidence to place him at Gurnall Leisure Centre the day Penny was killed. Still, the Napper investigation remains a stark reminder of police oversight. Early in the Nickel case, Napper was dismissed based on faulty witness height estimates. He missed multiple appointments to give DNA samples and wasn't pushed. That failure delayed justice for over a decade, allowing a dangerous man to remain at large. In January 2019, a witness reported seeing a man on the A40 footbridge between 10:50 and 10:55 a.m. on June 6, 1991, describing him as wet, in his early 30s, wearing boxer shorts, a t-shirt, and a chunky bracelet. Detective Sergeant Susan Stansfield called this very significant, prompting fresh appeals. In January 2021, as the haunting 30th anniversary of Penny Bell's brutal murder approached, Penny's daughter Lauren Bell launched a dedicated Instagram account. Her goal was clear: to reignite public interest and keep Penny's memory alive in a digital age, hoping that fresh eyes and new voices might finally break the decades-long silence surrounding the murder. And just 2 months later, on March 10, 2021, the case was thrust back into the national spotlight. BBC's Crimewatch Live aired a special segment focusing on Penny Bell's unsolved murder. Lauren Bell appeared on screen alongside DS Susan Stansfield, a key figure in the investigation. Together, they made a powerful appeal to the public, announcing the renewal of the £20,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. Throughout the interview, Lauren spoke with quiet conviction and raw emotion. She firmly believed that Penny knew her killer, that this was not a random act of violence, but a calculated, deeply personal attack. Lauren argued of a twisted obsession, someone who wanted her but couldn't have her, Lauren said, capturing the chilling possibility that Penny's murderer was not just a cold-blooded killer, but someone driven by jealousy, rejection, or revenge. Between 2024 and 2025, Lauren and Brian Edwards, the officer who led the initial police investigation into the murder, submitted a dossier to Scotland Yard's cold case team, identifying a new person of interest. The Sun and Daily Mirror reported this suspect as previously unexplored, though Scotland Yard notes no conclusive forensic breakthroughs yet. The case remains stubbornly unsolved, despite periodic police reviews and cutting-edge DNA reanalysis that have yet to crack the mystery. Questions swirl around the unprecedented £8,500 cash withdrawal, the unrecorded appointment, and the curious Laura Ashley wallpaper sample carefully spread across the Jaguar center console, each a cryptic clue in a puzzle that refuses to come together. Was Penny's killer a scorned lover, a jealous associate, someone connected to the renovations hinted at by the wallpaper? A figure from her Samaritan past, the shadowy, disfigured man spotted nearby, the aggressive driver of the dark car, or perhaps John Richmond, whose fingerprints were found inside the vehicle. And now in 2024, a new person of interest emerges, adding fresh urgency to a case haunted by unanswered questions. The missing cash, the silent, desperate plea for help, the chilling parallels to the murder of Jean Bradley, Penny's unwaved goodbye, the failed photo fit, the absence of any blood-soaked suspect sighting, and the killer's vanishing act, escaped unnoticed from a busy car park. All these elements swirl in a cold case that refuses to fade, gripping investigators in a relentless search for truth. The murder of Penny Bell remains one of Britain's most haunting unsolved mysteries. A brutal, senseless act that shattered a life and left a community searching for answers for over 3 decades. Despite forensic breakthroughs, public appeals, and relentless investigation, the killer has never been brought to justice. Her case is a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the shadows that can lurk behind every moment. Penny's story echoes in the quiet corners of that leisure centre car park, in the unanswered questions and lost evidence, and in the hearts of those who still demand truth. As time passes, the hope remains that new witnesses, new technology, or a long overdue confession might finally unlock the silence, delivering justice not only for Penny, but for all those whose voices have been silenced too soon. Thank you for watching and listening to Penny's story. Please feel free to add your own thoughts, comments, and theories down below, and I'll see you next time.